young in naval school, and his father, his grandfather, and his best friend Banu later on. His life, through his life, he has been through 2 world wars. The World War I, he was a child, but when he was young, when he experienced the World War I affecting Turkey, Ottoman Empire, so he was so affected by his countries falling apart, and Atatürk had started the independence war. So he wanted to join to the independence war, and he and his friend Banu, they set out to Anatolia to join Kemal Atatürk, who had started the war for the independence of Turkey. So they went to Ankara to meet Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, and Atatürk said that, well, we need to take care of the education as well as fighting in the battles. So what I want you to do is go to the villages, to the cities, and teach French or be a teacher for the kids to grow up with a good education. So they did. And he and Banu settled in Bolu, start teaching. At the same time, during their travel to Ankara, Bolu, they met several people in the countryside. Remember, he's coming from Pasha family, but very much interested in the people of daily life. So he was hanging out with the people who had all these Marxist-Leninist ideas, and the Russian Revolutionary was happening. He and Banu was so interested in, and they had all this idea of being equal, everyone. So they set out to see the revolution, Russian Revolution itself. At the age of 18, they moved to Russia to see what's going on, and he stayed there for a couple of years. Then he came back to Turkey, start writing. Of course, his writings were not that well taken, and the Turkish government decided this is getting out of hand, and he realized that it is not going well. He went back to Moscow. Only after in 1928 he came back, when everything was settled. For 10 years in Istanbul, that was the period that he was most productive. He wrote several books, poetry, plays, and all that. But however, because his influence was continuously increasing, his writings were inspiring people, including the military men, not because his writing was the problem, is the people who were inspired by him. So they realized they're not going to convince him. And he was arrested. And he was in jail for 12 years. For those time, of course, at the beginning he was very much down, but he kept all his hope, and he acted with his friends in the jail, and he wrote many poems. We also watched the play based on his one of his epic human landscapes of my country. And during that time, many celebrities around the world start a campaign for his release. That included Pablo Neruda, who was given the Peace Award along with Nazım. Of course, Nazım couldn't take that, but everything worked out. The new government declared amnesty, so he was released from prison. But it didn't end it there, because now they know for sure they're not going to convince him not to write that kind of poetry. They call him back to the army for his role, which was out of imagination because he was so old. He had all these health conditions and such. So with broken heart, he had no other choice but to leave the country, and he lived his life outside of Turkey, always longing for his country, always thinking about his family. And the ironic part is that when he went back to Moscow, he realized it wasn't like he was dreaming about communism or socialism. This time, in Russia, he was followed by the spies, just like in Turkey. However, he served in the World Peace Council. He traveled around the world. He went to Cuba. He went to Africa, Azerbaijan, Crimea, you name it. You see the pictures from his travels. And his heart really was for all the people around the world and for the justice. And he really wanted to do something for them. And he showed that in his actions, not only in his, it wasn't like he would sit in one place and write poetry only, but despite the Russian pressure, he continued to give the message around the world. And I just wanted to read one of his poems that reflects why it wasn't only for Turkish people, but around the world. So this is called Angina Pectoris. Here it goes. So excuse my reading, I'm not a poet, but like Betty said that if he wasn't dead, I would definitely run away from him. Even though my kids would not have a good approval for that. If half my heart is here, doctor, the other half is in China, with the army flowing toward the Yellow River. And every morning, doctor, every morning at sunrise, my heart is shut in Greece. And every night, doctor, when the prisoners are asleep and the infirmary is deserted, my heart stops at a rundown old house in Istanbul. And then after 10 years, all I have to offer my poor people is this apple in my hand, doctor. One red apple. My heart. And that, doctor, that is the reason for this angina pectoris, not nicotine, not prison, or arteriosclerosis. I look at the night through the bars, and despite the weight on my chest, my heart still beats with the most distant stars. Awesome.
Now Turkish tea and coffee, I believe our break, time for our break. We have books and next
Diyeceğim bir şey bulmak lazım.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much.